Sonic Colors is one of those Sonic games that you've most likely played before. It's on the Wii, all the modern consoles, and even has a DS version. It's safe to say you probably played this on the Wii, because everyone's had a Wii before. I still remember when I was 5 years old, I thought this was a game where Sonic Colors. Even though I didn't want it to be, I still bought the game anyway. For who knows why. Even though I was surprised with an actual Sonic game, I never really beat this game. I think part of the reason why I never beat the game is because the game isn't very engaging. And I don't mean that the gameplay isn't engaging, because it certainly is, but the story is just not good. For reference, the only other Sonic game I played at the time was Sonic 06. While the story is confusing, it at least made an attempt to give us an interesting story. And in Sonic Colors, we just don't see that. It's about as basic as the classic games. The whole story is just that Eggman's trying to enslave an alien race, and that's pretty similar to the classic games where Eggman enslaves animals. There is more to the story, but not much more. It's hard to expand on the story because of how bare bones it is, and the cutscenes also really highlight how boring the story is. For instance, in this cutscene, Sonic goes, "Hey Tails, you missed the BBBE. Best boss beating ever." I just don't even understand. Is this meant to be funny? And every cutscene is like this. I mean, at least we got Sonic saying,
"No copyright law in the universe is going to stop me!"
So it all cancels out. Might as well just delete the whole video then. But this just shows how unserious Sonic is. And that's a big problem. Sonic just acts so different in Colors. If we compare how he acts in Colors to something like Black Knight, it's completely different. He often acts cartoonish and takes nothing seriously in Colors. He's still cocky, but it's not in the same way. In Sonic and the Black Knight, Sonic is confident, but he's not overconfident. He understands that there are stakes and he takes them seriously. And the storytelling really conveys this. The stakes in Sonic Colors feel a lot less there because of how Sonic treats it. When playing this, I would forget the goal of the story, freeing the aliens, because it just doesn't do a good job at making the game centered around this. Every cutscene is just centered around Sonic's jumpy mood and giving him more time to crack another joke. Not once does the tone of the game get darker. The vibe of the game just stays bright and colorful while Eggman's enslaving an alien race. And again, Sonic and the Black Knight just did this so much better. The stakes are actually visible and the vibe of the game actually fits the plotline. Sonic overall is just not as cool in Sonic Colors. Gone is the adventure swag era. Even transformations. And no, the Wisps don't count. No sword, no nothing. Colors dug this hole of deep characterization and poorly written stories and didn't even attempt to refill it until Sonic Forces. Say what you want about Forces, but at least they tried with the story. He was less overconfident and actually relied off others sometimes. And after Forces, we got Frontiers, which actually improved his characterization again. So it took over a decade to fix what this game did to Sonic. But none of that really matters. So many games have shown that you don't need a good story to be a good game, and Sonic Colors is one of those. This game might be the most commonly praised Sonic game, despite probably having the worst story out of all of them. And all this praise is justifiable. Sonic Colors uses the same format as the daytime levels from Sonic Unleashed, where it focuses more on reaction speed than quick platforming, and it leaves most of the platforming to the 2D sections. And the goal is to maintain your boost rather than maintaining your momentum. And since the daytime levels in Unleashed were so great, a game full of them should also be great. And yeah, it is. And to me, some of the levels were better than the ones in Unleashed. I like how Colors seems to focus less on holding down the boost button and actually strategizing on when to use your boost, since you don't get as much boost as you did in Unleashed. But actually, I'm not that sure if it's true, because I've never heard anyone else talk about this before. So please let me know if you also experienced this. One of the things that Colors did undeniably worse than Unleashed was the controls. Instead of being able to quick step whenever you want, you have to wait for certain segments. Same with the drift. You can't just drift during the 3D segments, only when the game allows you to. And even worse, you can't boost while drifting. Now yes, this is due to the Wii remote only having 2 buttons, but I mean, come on, no boosting while drifting? That gets rid of the whole point of drifting because it's not rewarding anymore. They at least added good features to at least kind of balance it out, and those new features are of course the Wisps, which personally I didn't really use that much for how major they seem to be to the game. It just feels faster to run, but that's not to say that they're a bad thing. They're usually praised because they add a lot of replay value, and that's especially important for a game like Sonic Colors because this game is really short. It only took me about 2.5 hours to beat this game, and I'm not like a speedrunner or anything. I died a lot. The Wisps can give you different paths to go on and make the levels feel a lot more open. On my first playthrough, I barely used the Wisp, but then later I realized I missed out on so much content. You don't actually realize how much exploration you can do in levels unless you actually try to explore. Also, second playthroughs of levels are encouraged, because sometimes in levels it will have an empty container because you haven't unlocked those Wisps yet. So on your next run, you're encouraged to use them because you haven't explored that area yet. But the thing is, most of these Wisps only work in the 2D areas, and the few Wisps that do work in the 3D areas are usually just slower and less fun. Like this green Wisp, it takes so long to fly up when I could have just homing attacked my way up. And also, there's a few Wisps that are just unfun and pointless to use. Like the cube Wisp, it turns all the blue rings into blue boxes and all the blue boxes into blue rings. There's also the Frenzy Wisp, which just kind of eats these blue tank things and also grows pretty big. And the green Wisp, which I already talked about. But they're not so bad that it makes the whole level bad, since it's just a little segment of one whole level. That is, of course, if you're not talking about the filler stages. If you don't know what a filler stage is, it's basically just a really short level that usually has some gimmick tied to it. And also, they're mostly in 2D. There's a few of these levels that are just using one Wisp gimmick. Like this one's all about the cube Wisp, and it's all about that till the very end. But the filler stages aren't always about Wisp, and sometimes have worse gimmicks. This level is just you bouncing off a platform until you reach the end, and it's just like an auto-scroller. At least they're usually pretty short, and they aren't so bad to call it a bad game. And one thing that they still carry with them from the non-filler stages is the visuals. The whole game just looks so good and fits the colors title. Even the planets on the world map just look so great. They all have different designs and aren't just all spheres with different colors on them. And they all have their own distinct theme. And you can really see that in Starlight Carnival. When you're playing the levels, you can really see the details of the planet close up. I also really like how Aquarium Park looked. It looked like an underwater science lab mixed with Japanese buildings. And the levels all do a good job of looking the same but being different. And these water levels are actually fun. Instead of the usual water physics, you can now jump as many times in the water as you want. And that leads to it being more engaging than every other Sonic water level. And also, hands down, has the best music of any other level. And now that we've gone over everything, it's time to talk about the bosses. And honestly, the bosses aren't even that bad. They're all pretty unique and show things that we haven't seen in bosses before. Like this Ferris wheel boss had a really cool concept. I wish it was a bit harder, but it was still really fun to fight it. I also like this warship boss because of the scenery that you see while fighting it. I do think the game should have given you more boost in this segment because it would enhance the visuals and also just the whole pacing of the boss. But then this pirate looking guy has not a good boss fight. You kind of just go through half a level, then fight him, then go through another half of the level again, and then fight him again. He's honestly pretty boring to fight and doesn't really have anything to stick out compared to the other bosses. Although these bosses are unique, they aren't as unique when they get used twice in the game. And once you realize that they reuse bosses in Planet Wisp, it becomes a lot less fun to wonder what the next boss is going to be. So then, at that point, there's one boss left, and that's the final boss. And now this one's very unique. But big surprise, it's Eggman. Eggman's made his own Mother Wisp robot, and he sucks up the Wisps and uses their powers on you. And sometimes he even combines the Wisps' attacks. And while all this happens, all the different Wisps gather around you for one final attack. Or multiple, I guess. All while Reach for the Stars is playing in the background. And it's a good boss, but it just doesn't feel that great because the story doesn't build up to this moment. But it's all about gameplay anyway. And also, Sonic runs from a black hole right after. In the end, I'd say Sonic Colors is a great game that's just missing a good storytelling. Alright then, that's it.